The market's uncertain, revenue's tight, and hiring on hold. That's why results-driven companies are using Upwork to keep work moving. Go to Upwork.com today and start hiring proven freelance talent fast. No bulky overhead. No rigid long-term contracts. Just the right expert right when you need them. Work smarter and faster with Upwork. Go to Upwork.com now and find your freelance expert. That's UPWORK.com. Post a job for free and get started today.
Want to get your hands dirty for a good cause? Volunteer with Gardeneers and help support students in Chicago's South and West Side schools as they learn to grow fresh food, care for gardens, and build healthier futures. No gardening experience needed, just your time, energy, and a desire to help local youth thrive. Best of all, you'll be making a direct impact where it matters most. Sign up to volunteer today at Gardeneers.org.
The market's uncertain, revenue's tight, and hiring on hold. That's why results-driven companies are using Upwork to keep work moving. Go to Upwork.com today and start hiring proven freelance talent fast. No bulky overhead. No rigid long-term contracts. Just the right expert right when you need them. Work smarter and faster with Upwork. Go to Upwork.com now and find your freelance expert. That's UPWORK.com. Post a job for free and get started today.
Want to get your hands dirty for a good cause? Volunteer with Gardeneers and help support students in Chicago's South and West Side schools as they learn to grow fresh food, care for gardens, and build healthier futures. No gardening experience needed, just your time, energy, and a desire to help local youth thrive. Best of all, you'll be making a direct impact where it matters most. Sign up to volunteer today at Gardeneers.org.
In the late 1700s, a warm June day in Shepton Mallet promised nothing out of the ordinary. On one such afternoon in 1768, an elderly man named Owen Parfitt was settled into a chair outside his small cottage to enjoy the sunshine. Nearly paralysed from illness, Owen relied on his sister Mary and a neighbour, Susanna Snook, for care. The two women had just placed Owen, clad in only his nightshirt and a coat, by the front door, where he often sat for fresh air. The cottage stood along a frequented road near the town centre, within earshot of farmhands working nearby. For a short while, Owen was left unattended. Susanna walked back to her own house a short distance away, and Mary stepped inside to tidy up Owen's room. It was the briefest of moments, perhaps 15 minutes. Yet when Mary returned to check on her brother, the chair was empty. Owen Parfitt had vanished without a sound. I'm Sarah Powell, and this is Obscurata, because some stories have no ending. Mary's heart pounded. Just moments ago, her brother sat right there. Now only his discarded coat remained, draped over the chair. Panicked, she called out for help. Neighbours and farm workers rushed over as word spread that the old man had gone missing in an impossibly short span of time. A swift search of the immediate area began. They scoured the yard and lanes, peered behind hedgerows, and even poked into haystacks, but found nothing. Given Owen's physical state, it seemed impossible he could have wandered off on his own. He could barely take a step without assistance, let alone disappear without a trace. The realization dawned on the gathering townsfolk. Something truly inexplicable had occurred on that sunny afternoon. As the alarm bells rang out in Shepton Mallet that day, many recalled Owen Parfitt's peculiar life story. Owen was about 69 years old at the time he disappeared, and his reputation in town was colourful, to say the least. In youth, he had been, by all accounts, a rambunctious wild boy, prone to adventure and occasional violence. He claimed to have served in the military abroad, including in Africa, and to have sailed on privateering or pirating ventures. Whether all his tales were true or embellished, they gave him the aura of a man who had lived a daring life. Locals gossiped that Owen had been a pirate, or at least mixed with unsavoury crews, and he certainly boasted of past exploits involving bravery and womanizing. By his later years, however, those wild adventures had caught up with him. Owen was struck by a debilitating illness, likely a stroke or series of strokes, that left him mostly paralysed. He returned to quiet domestic life in Shepton Mallet, dependent on his elderly sister Mary and the kindly neighbour Susanna Snook for basic needs. Despite his infirmity, Owen's personality remained fiery. He was known to be irritable and eccentric. Some neighbours found him unpleasant, while others simply viewed him as a cantankerous old storyteller. Importantly, Owen had no ability to walk far, and certainly could not run or hide. Every day, he sat in the same chair by the door, or was confined to his bed. This is why his sudden disappearance was so baffling. How could a virtually immobile man simply evaporate from a busy area in broad daylight? The search for Owen Parfitt rapidly expanded beyond his yard. Mary and Susanna, though elderly themselves, frantically led neighbours in checking every conceivable hiding place. They combed the adjacent fields and footpaths. Workers in a nearby field had been threshing wheat and reported seeing nothing unusual during the critical quarter hour when Owen vanished. The lane in front of the Parfitt cottage was a turnpike road, with passing travellers and local residents milling about. Surely, it seemed, if someone had approached and carried off a grown man in a chair, someone would have noticed. But no witnesses reported seeing strangers or disturbances. It was as if Owen had been plucked from existence in an instant. Local authorities got involved, turning the matter into a full investigation. They questioned villagers about any outsiders or enemies of Owen. None were identified. Mary Parfitt was also questioned. Could she possibly have harmed her brother? Those who knew the kindly old woman dismissed the idea. Besides, Mary was even more frail than Owen, and financially depended on the small parish stipend provided for his care. The notion that she could have secretly murdered him and buried the body in minutes was implausible. Investigators found no signs of struggle, no blood, no drag marks from the chair. The wooden chair had not even been tipped over. Owen's coat lay folded where it had been placed on his lap. The scene was eerily undisturbed. Townspeople found out further, checking the nearby woods and ponds. Some thought perhaps Owen had miraculously gotten up and wandered off, due to a sudden recovery or delirium. But even if he had, How far could a layman get? No trace of footprints or sightings turned up. In the days that followed, the search expanded to neighbouring villages. Shepton Mallet's church parish register and town crier spread word of the missing man, hoping someone might find a body or hear a confession. Still nothing. Owen Parfitt had simply vanished into thin air. With no evidence to go on, a variety of theories took root. The most mundane explanation floated was that Owen Parfitt had been abducted by persons unknown, possibly to settle an old score. Owen's youthful misdeeds had earned him enemies, or so the rumours said. Perhaps someone he had crossed in his soldiering or pirating days finally tracked him down to exact revenge. This theory imagines silent kidnappers lifting the helpless man and whisking him away in a matter of minutes. Yet skeptics point out the sheer audacity of pulling off such an abduction in a busy area without a single cry or witness. It would have required careful timing and knowledge that the sister and neighbour had momentarily left, suggesting a premeditated plan. If Owen were taken by vengeful rivals, they certainly left no clue. And why not simply kill him in his bed at night? The abduction scenario seemed needlessly risky and melodramatic to many. Another possibility was that Owen engineered his own disappearance. Could the old trickster have arranged for someone to carry him off to start a new life elsewhere, free from his feeble body and dull routine? Perhaps he wasn't as paralysed as everyone thought and managed to slip away. But those who knew Owen doubted this strongly. His physical limitations were genuine and severe. Moreover, by all accounts, he had nowhere to go and no resources to fund a secret escape. The man was nearing 70, infirm, and had lived off parish charity. It seemed far-fetched that he'd mastermind an escape from a situation where he was lovingly cared for by family. This theory too failed to convince, leaving the mystery unresolved. As the logical explanations faltered, darker whispers began to circulate around Shepton Mallet. People recalled Owen's own boasts of occult dabbling in his younger years. A few villagers remembered that Owen had claimed to have associated with necromancers and magicians in his adventures abroad. Had he delved into black magic? Some neighbours muttered that the devil might have come to collect Owen Parfitt's soul. After all, why would a normal kidnapper take Owen and leave his coat behind, in silence, under a clear daylight sky? The notion seemed absurd, unless some supernatural force was at work. Owen's sister Mary was one of those who believed something otherworldly had occurred. In the immediate aftermath of Owen's vanishing, Mary reportedly cried out that the devil must have taken him. This was not said lightly. Mary had been in the next room and swore she heard no struggle or plea. The day had been fair, but shortly after Owen disappeared, an abrupt storm rolled over Shepton Mallet, with thunder rumbling across the sky. To frightened onlookers, this sudden change in weather was an omen, perhaps a supernatural clap of chaos marking the devil's departure with his unfortunate prize. Local legend says that the very storm seemed to celebrate or signal Owen's doom, lending weight to Mary's exclamation that her brother was snatched by the devil himself. Shepton Mallet at the time was no stranger to belief in witches and dark forces. Older residents could recall that just a century earlier, their town had been at the centre of a notorious witchcraft case. Back in 1657, a young boy here had been mysteriously afflicted and levitated under the supposed spell of a witch, a tale documented by the famous Joseph Glanville as proof of the supernatural. The memory of that event lingered in local folklore. Evil forces had once touched this town, and perhaps they had returned. When Owen Parfitt vanished, some drew parallels. A narrative emerged that Owen, with his occult dabbling, may have made a diabolical pact in his youth. Now, in old age and infirmity, Satan had come to settle accounts by spiriting Owen away in front of everyone's eyes. This supernatural explanation gained traction in the absence of any earthly evidence. It was even recorded that a decade later, when investigators spoke to Owen's former neighbours, most believed that the crippled tailor's disappearance was the work of dark magic. Shepton Mallet, they said, was a hotbed of witchcraft activity. In the area, superstitious or not, people noted that no body was ever found, no ransom demanded, and no culprit identified. So why not attribute it to the devil? Owen Parfitt's vanishing began to sound like a classic folk tale, the sinner carried off by demons. For years after 1768, Owen Parfitt's fate remained completely unknown. Then in 1813, about 50 years later, an intriguing discovery reignited the mystery. A labourer digging in a garden, roughly 150 yards from Owen's old cottage, unearthed a human skeleton about 2 feet below ground. The remains appeared to have been hastily buried face down, all in a heap, as if the body had been thrown in without care. Excitement rippled through Shepton Mallet. Could this finally be Owen? The timing and location made it tempting to connect the dots. But upon examination by doctors, the skeleton was determined to be that of a young woman, not an elderly man. Owen Parfitt remained missing, and now there was another mystery skeleton to boot. The unfortunate woman's identity and whether her death had any relation to Owen's case was never resolved. It was a dead end, leaving Owen's story as confounding as ever. Over the ensuing decades and centuries, Owen Parfitt's disappearance has often been cited as one of history's most puzzling unsolved vanishings. Occasional newspaper articles and chronicles revisited the tale. The earliest known written account appeared in 1789, hinting that even then the story had captured public fascination. By the 19th century, writers recounting the case emphasised the supernatural angle, noting how common opinion in town had fixed on the devil's involvement. The lack of any earthly solution effectively cemented the paranormal explanation in local lore. Owen Parfitt's name became entwined with the idea of a man spirited away by uncanny forces, a fate that folks may half-jokingly warn about on dark nights. The disappearance of Owen Parfitt remains an enduring mystery in Shepton Mallet's history. It stands alongside other famous unsolved cases as a reminder of how a person can seemingly vanish without trace. Modern investigators who look back on it tend to favour the abduction theory, perhaps by an unknown assailant with a grudge. as the most plausible scenario. Without evidence, though, even the rational explanations are built on conjecture. Meanwhile, the legend of Owen's demonic kidnapping continues to intrigue those who enjoy a good ghost story. Adding to this, Shepton Mallet itself has other traces of the uncanny that provide a fitting backdrop. The town's ancient prison, for example, is billed as one of the most haunted prisons in the world. This Shepton Mallet prison, operating from 1625 to 2013, has its own ghostly legend of a white lady, said to roam a wing. Allegedly the spirit of an 18th century prisoner who died tragically the night before her execution, dressed in her wedding gown. Within these walls, visitors and staff have reported whispers, phantom perfume scents, and shadowy figures believed to be her presence. Such local legends, though unrelated directly to Owen Parfitt, contribute to an impression that Shepton Mallet is a place where the past does not rest quietly.
The market's uncertain, revenue's tight, and hiring on hold. That's why results-driven companies are using Upwork to keep work moving. Go to Upwork.com today and start hiring proven freelance talent fast. No bulky overhead. No rigid long-term contracts. Just the right expert right when you need them. Work smarter and faster with Upwork. Go to Upwork.com now and find your freelance expert. That's UPWORK.com. Post a job for free and get started today.
Want to get your hands dirty for a good cause? Volunteer with Gardeneers and help support students in Chicago's South and West Side schools as they learn to grow fresh food, care for gardens, and build healthier futures. No gardening experience needed, just your time, energy, and a desire to help local youth thrive. Best of all, you'll be making a direct impact where it matters most. Sign up to volunteer today at gardeneers.org.
In the end, Owen Parfitt's story continues to fascinate because it sits at that very intersection of what is known and unknown. Here was a real man, documented in parish registers, born in 1699 by one record, who lived and breathed in the quiet Somerset town. His life was full of adventure and sin by his own account, and it ended in a way that defies all logic. Over 250 years later, we have no corpse, no culprit, and no consensus on what happened. All we have are the stories, the facts gleaned from newspaper archives and oral history, and the fables layered atop them over time. Owen's disappearance remains Shepton Mallet's unsolved mystery, a reminder that sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. Whether you lean towards a prosaic explanation or a paranormal one, the question lingers in the air of that sunny little street. What really became of Owen Parfitt? And that's the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed. It's really interesting because I just want to know what happened to him. But I can't, and that's so frustrating. It's infuriating. If you'd like to support this podcast, you can do so by rating and reviewing, and by visiting patreon.com/The Whispering Woods, where for £2.50 a month, you can subscribe to the Obscurata tier and listen to all episodes ad-free. We are also on Apple Premium, where you can subscribe directly in the app. And for $4.99 a month, you can listen to this podcast and our other podcast, The Whispering Woods, ad-free. I want to say a quick thank you to Rog for fact-checking and editing. And as always, stay curious and sleep with the lights on, just in case.
If you're a Chicago business looking to give back locally, Gardeneers is your kind of nonprofit. We work in under-resourced schools across the South and West Sides, helping students grow fresh food and learn about health, sustainability, and equity. Your corporate sponsorship supports hands-on education, youth mentorship, and the transformation of school gardens into vibrant green spaces. Learn more about sponsorship opportunities at gardeneers.org, and let's grow something together.